Hi, Joe Martin here, and we've been talking to you lately about your job being essential. So here's the question. Do you have the tools to be considered essential in today's changing job market? Our 2-year degree programs do just that. From HVAC, instrumentation and control systems technology, to construction management. We have a degree plan specifically for you. So go online or call our exceptional admissions team to get started. ITI Technical College, for a better life.
Hi, I'm Lee Feinswag, and the Sports 225 you're about to see with Collis Temple III is really special to me. We don't talk about sports. We talk about what's happening in society today. If all you're caring about is sports, well, this show's not for you, but I think it's important. I will tell you also, we're also at the mercy of Zoom and the internet. A couple times in there, it's going to look like one of those old Japanese movies where the sound and the lips are not in sync. You can still hear what we're saying, and I invite you to not only watch the show, but hang with it and take it to heart. Thanks for watching Sports 225. I'm Lee Feinswag, and this is Sports 225. And not just any Sports 225. This is the 25th year of the show. We started with Sports Monday, continued it into Sports 225, and now, a quarter century later, here we are. Sports 225 is sponsored by Breck. And now, me.
Well, normally I don't do this show in June. I usually knock off in May. And I'm really glad that I decided to keep going. And that's one of the benefits of the side effects of doing this show in the time of coronavirus, which is that I am the staff. I'm able to do these Zoom meetings, and you can get people anywhere. They don't have to come to studio. And in this case, it's Collis Temple III, who you haven't seen yet. But we know each other, and this is going to shock Collis, for longer than half his life, because Collis, I believe you're either at 40 or pushing 40, and I've known you since you were in high school. So there you go. Well, how are you?
I'm doing amazingly. You have actually known me, I think, since I was 17, and I am 40. So 23 years that we have known each other. And Lee knows that it's in fact, it's in my book, Lee, you are driving one of the driving forces to helping me to achieve the success. There you go. There you go. There you go.
There you go.
The book.
Work like a slave, think like a master. But he got it wrong in the book. You see, I get you on this again. He got it wrong. He thought I was dogging him at some point, and I was not. But but anyway, whatever you take for motivation, that's all good.
Right.
These Collis and I know each other, and we laugh a lot about a lot of stuff, and we always have, even when you were playing, even when things were bad, even when I've known you, over these years. But the reason I want to talk to you is because it is serious, and so you know that. So I want to set it up by saying this: everybody's prejudiced. Anybody who tells you that they don't have prejudice, they're lying. Okay, in some form or fashion. But not everybody is a racist, and not everybody is a bigot, and not everybody should, and no one ever should be a racist and never should be a bigot. So I throw that out there to begin with. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say that it is a very fair assessment. I think that obviously prejudice exists. We may have possibly slightly differing views from a racist perspective. I do not believe that everybody is a racist. I definitely don't believe that everybody intentionally is a racist.
Right. No, I hope I didn't say that wrong and mean that, because I say that people have prejudices, but not everybody is a racist, and no one should ever be a racist. And no one, and yeah, that's the way I hope I said that right. But
I agree. And I think, interestingly enough, my thought from a racism perspective is that racism, we hear the terminology systemic racism, right? Where it's just something that it's something that is kind of built into unfortunately, systematically built into the fabric of our everyday culture and the decision-making mechanisms in the United States, okay? And I think that makes it a challenge. That's part of, I believe, the major challenge that has to be changed, and that's why. And I'm an extremely optimistic person, Lee. But that's why I do not see during my lifetime, and I plan on living until I'm about 100 years old. But I stay in shape and everything else. I don't think that we'll be at a. People talk about, well, I don't see color. Well, that's part of the problem. You know what I'm saying? Because just like I hope that you want me to see you as what you are, I hope that you see me as what I am. So I think that people say, well, I don't see color. Well, that's part of the problem, right? We are who we are, and we all come with different, obviously, individually, we all come with different idiosyncrasies. But then, when you ask me to have a conversation like this is how we can fix the challenges and the problems that exist. Talking about it, does that make sense? And in some cases, we may come to some consensus. In other cases, we may have to agree to disagree, but at least having a conversation and having conversations all around the country and even obviously the world, that's how stuff like this can, at least the needle can start being moved and moving forward.
Well, when I break it down on a base level, like in my own little world as a sports writer covering athletes, like one of the things that I always maintain, whether it's a high school kid, a college kid, and then a pro athlete, and taking away the cultural parts of it, like as a college kid, you were a kid who, regardless of what color you were, you wanted to do really well in school, be a good guy, and be the best basketball player you could be. You worried about the same things that the other kids did on the team, whether they were white or black. How are you doing with the women? What are you going to do when you're not playing basketball? And that part of it, in my little world has always been the same. And then culturally is where, a black person dresses different, or a black person has different hair, or things that are important to them culturally and socially. I'm not talking about, the basics like, food, sleep, work, right? And that's always what has always been the part of my little world. I don't know if I'm making myself go anywhere with that or not, but I wanted to throw that at you too.
Well, it's and that is based on a person's upbringing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because once again, people dress differently. Okay. But look, if there was a black guy that went to Catholic high, and was raised in a certain situation, under certain circumstances around, a family that operated a certain way, he might dress more like the folks that went to Catholic high, right, than someone that maybe went somewhere else and didn't maybe have the same family structure. You with me? So yeah. I've seen that happen very much so. I've definitely seen that happen. So the way that our parents were raised, the way that they raised us, the awareness that they provided us with, there's so many different factors that go into this. But the reality is this: where I've seen, and I had a conversation, with a white guy yesterday, and I just asked him, okay, just take this for example. Outside of speeding, right? Are you ever really aware? Do you think about if you're ever really aware of a police officer being around you when you're driving, other than when you're speeding? Do you ever oh, I got somebody behind me?
Yeah, right? Now I know, but look, I know where you're going with that. I got to take a break. We're way over in this segment, and that's what I want to ask you. It's so good that you brought that up. So I never even introduced you as Collis Temple III, a guy from Baton Rouge who went to U High, played basketball at LSU where he was pretty good, might have been an NBA player if he hadn't blown out his knee, but is now a successful businessman. I'm Lee Feinswag. This is Sports 225, and we'll be right back.
Breck is here for you. Refresh your mind online and outdoors with their Refresh Your Mind webpage. Check out virtual versions of some of your favorite Breck activities and adventures. See which parks are open and safe to visit, as well as ideas for you and your family that will revive and refresh your mind in a positive and safe way. You'll also find videos and content on Breck's social media pages. Visit Breck today without leaving your home. Breck.org/refresh.
All right, we're back on Sports 225, and this time I won't forget to actually say who Collis Temple III is. He is the National Sales Director for Primerica, a financial company. He is a former great basketball player at U-High, at LSU, might have had a pro career, but had a bad knee. His brother Garrett, however, is having a fabulous pro career and is with the Brooklyn Nets, and we'll talk about him later. But luckily, he makes good money, and his brother Collis manages it. Boom, there you go.
There you go.
So as we ended the last segment, you started to talk about if white people ever think if cops are around other than when they're speeding. And it's a great point. Now, you're a guy who has spent his whole life on all parts of both worlds, as you know, with black people of different types and white people of different types, both in your growing up, in your sports, and in your professional world. You're a handsome, articulate guy who dresses well. I could give you a hard time, and somebody's always getting a hard time about my shirts. You know, I mean, that one you're wearing is beautiful, but it's usually the kind that I wear and get a hard time for.
Right.
But I want you to tell a story, because you actually posted this on Facebook a few years ago about driving and getting stopped because you were black. And if I could get you to tell that story, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I mean, it was probably about 7:45, on a weekday, and I was going to my office. This was probably maybe 12, 13 years ago. So I was, I guess, 26, 27 years old, and I was driving to my office in the morning, and, had a suit and tie on and got stopped. I mean, literally two police officers ran up on me, like turned their lights on. And listen, I drive fast. I will tell you probably 60% of the time, Lee, I am not driving the speed limit. Okay. And I know that. All right. That is a Achilles heel of mine. But in this case, I specifically know that I was not speeding because it was traffic in the middle of the day. And I mean, early in the morning, and I was just in the midst of traffic. It wasn't like I was just out running, running a 70 and a 60. It was like I was in traffic. And they ran up on me. Two of them ran up on me. And it's so funny because, if you're speeding, then okay, all right, the cops are coming, all right. But I'm going to be honest, I was just aware the whole time, like, man, these guys about to mess with me. All right. And maybe it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, but they ran up on me right before the split. All right. The Hammond, New Orleans split. They ran up on me, pulled me on the side of the road, and then just proceeded to harass me because I was driving a Chrysler 300 that had rims on it, but I get out of the car and I'm having my suit on. I'm heading to my office. Literally, my office is off of Sherwood Forest, and so I was heading to my office. They pulled me over. Do you have any drugs in the car or drug paraphernalia? Do you have any contraband? I'm like, no, I'm going to my office. I mean, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not saying that somebody might not be doing it at 8 o'clock. But Lee, honestly, there was a gentleman that it couldn't have been 3 months earlier than that, named George Temple, no relation, that had been killed by an onlooker that basically had kind of done a citizen's arrest because George and a police officer had gotten a fight, and onlooker shot George Temple, okay, and got off, and there was no issues. I'm talking about right in Baton Rouge, okay. I don't know if you remember that, but I do. And that was literally about 3 months before this. And George, Lee, I tell people, I never, you know my father very well. I've never heard fear in his voice other than when he was on the phone. Because I was very, I'm gonna be honest, I was very, I was being assertive with the police officers because I'm like, why are you guys stopping me? You didn't tell me I was speeding, you didn't, and I was, and And I just, I called my dad when they pulled me over. I'm like, look, these guys about to be messing with me. He was just like, Collis, you need to be quiet. Just do what they say to do. And that ain't his MO. You know what I'm saying? But he was just like, man, just be quiet. Just be cool. Do what they say to do. And they, they kind of roughed me up a little bit, and they put me in the back of the car. But
physically roughed you up?
I mean, they had me in cuffs. They put me in the back of the car. They pushed me up against the cop car. And then they put me in the back and took me downtown. Now, one of them was a lot more aggressive than the other one, because the other one kind of was like, oh man, I think we make a mistake here. And I'm gonna be honest, Lee, I was being, at that point, I was just so frustrated and so mad. I was mad. I was so mad, like,
wow.
I was aggressive.
Well, look, I need you. Yeah, I want you to take a break right here. Let's pick this right back up, because this story, if we keep going, we're going to completely, blow everything I got on a time schedule for this show. But consider what's going on in today's world and that story. Hold that thought. He's Collis Temple III. I'm Lee Feinswag. This is Sports 225.
Breck's crews are keeping spaces clean and safe for you in our parks during this difficult time. Governor Edwards deemed outdoor activities as essential in his stay-at-home order, but ordered the closure of playgrounds, other high-touch places, and banned groups of more than 10 people. So you can walk, hike, bike, or run in parks, conservation areas, and trails. But please stay 6 feet away from others and avoid the places blocked off by tape or closure signs. Let's work together to play it safe at Breck Parks.
Back on Sports 225 during the turbulent time, talking to Collis Temple III, who's right in the middle of the story, telling us how he was driving to work, dressed nice, on the interstate, got pulled off. Is now in the back of a cop car with handcuffs, and you were getting worked up telling the story, so maybe that's a good thing that we went to commercial. But pick it up from where you left it off, if you don't mind.
I remember telling this. I mean, really being belligerent and just telling the cops, "Look, you're making a career bad decision." You know what I'm saying? I mean, if it gets to me having to call your boss's boss and the mayor, then you're gonna be without a job. Which obviously, the cop is not going. The mass majority of police officers are not going to respond well to a 26-year-old black guy telling them, "Look, I'm about to make you lose your job. You're gonna lose your job behind dealing with me like this, right?" But that's not my MO either. You know what I'm saying? To pull that card. But I was obviously frustrated because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. And so one of them, probably about halfway before we got downtown, was like, "Look, man, all of a sudden now I'm Mr. Temple. Look, I see we've obviously made a mistake. I want to tell you we apologize. Look, before we get out, I'm going to take these cuffs off of you. We're going to walk in here together like men." And in my mind, I'm like, "Man, you done already made a mistake. This is past that. We're past that point. You can't apologize at this point, right?" But and we went inside, and man, obviously my dad was waiting there. We got it taken care of, and it was over with before it got started. But just that experience and knowing that had my dad not on the phone told me, "Man, be cool," and I still wasn't really cool, but I was more cool than I not said something. Who knows what would have happened?
Well, when I got my driver's license, I remember my father, who had wisdom about certain things, and one of them was he told me, I got the license, and he said there's 3 things. He goes, number 1, you can stay out as late as you want, just whatever time you say you're coming home, don't ever be late. Fair enough. Number 2, don't ever have sex in a car, because you put yourself in a bad, vulnerable situation. And number 3 is it's yes officer and no officer. But I never had to think about that as a black guy. So now when you see all the things that are going on, I mean, this week in particular is so depressing and so frustrating. And you personally, I know you must be beside yourself, but you have young sons, and you've been given the message from your own father to you and Garrett, for example. And Your other brother, Elliot. Thank you. I couldn't remember. I was blanking out on Elliot's name. He was a great guy. But now to put this message across, it seems so unfair that you have to operate as a black person instead of a person just doing regular things.
Lee, that what you just said, the acknowledgement, and the reality is this: you have to also acknowledge, in acknowledging that you as a white man will never have to deal with or be able to understand what that is, but acknowledging that that there is a difference is the beginning. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's the beginning, because there are things, and I had to tell a friend of mine this the other day. I said, there are things that I've got to teach my son that you won't have to teach your son for him to be able to stay alive. And that's just reality. Now, you made a great point. Your dad told you the third thing was yes sir, no sir. Think about this. I'm driving back from a business meeting with my wife, okay? And we're in a small town coming back from, Lafayette or Opelousas or whatever, coming back from Opelousas. We're going the back way. And cop, hits the lights, pulls us over, and she is freaking out. I'm talking about like freaking out for real. Like, I'm a filming. This Philando Castile just gotten shot. I mean, just all this stuff. And she is literally like recording it, right? And
and like for anybody who doesn't know, the former Brittany Hurst, who was a great college volleyball player at Tulane, and is one of the most excitable people you've ever seen in a sporting event, forget just everyday life. So it helps to set that up just a little bit too.
Yes. She is an amazing woman. But she just, because it's a totally different way of thinking. It's like a set of circumstances that somebody who's not black would never even, it wouldn't even cross their mind that something like that, it wouldn't even cross their mind to even think about it, And so acknowledging, okay, well, that situation exists, that circumstance exists, we got to do that first. Anybody who wants to help be a part of change happening has to first acknowledge there is a significant difference, and that African Americans in the United States have had a very trying existence at the baseline. Things are obviously better now than they were in the 50s. They're from certain perspectives, okay? Well,
look, I got to take another break, but I'll tell you, being old enough and, pretty much a contemporary of your father's, I'm seeing crap, especially this week, that are giving me flashbacks from the 60s that I never thought I'd see again. And we just don't have the time. But take a deep breath. I'm going to do the same thing. We'll take a break, and we'll come back with one final segment of Collis Temple III.
With schools out, children across our community are missing the nutritious meals they rely on each day. Along with the public school systems, BREC has partnered with 3 O'Clock Project to have thousands of meals delivered in our parks. The meals are free to anyone under 18. Please visit 3o'clockproject.org/COVID to see the schedule and find the location closest to you. During this uncertain time, BREC is here for you.
All right, coming down the home stretch of a fascinating Sports 225 with Collis Temple III. We could talk about so much stuff, but Collis, I wanted to talk about like the NBA coming back and the Brooklyn Nets and Garrett Temple, but instead, let's just spend these last couple minutes talking about the unfortunate murder of George Floyd last week, the protests, the out of control stuff, the rioting and all. I mean, I don't discount that because that's not the right word, but that's not the message that people are trying to get across. Or is the message being heard that needs to be heard, and what more can we do?
First of all, you're right. The looting, that in my humble opinion is totally opportunist, taking advantage of a very unfortunate set of circumstances, and it's horrible. But rioting. I mean, Martin Luther King himself, the king of nonviolence, right, said that rioting is the language of the unheard. And so, protest and rioting, I mean, that's unfortunately, that's how those things have to happen in order for change to take place. It would be very nice if someone it'd be very nice if somebody could say, hey, look, these people are being treated wrong. Let's do better. And then it happened. But that's not the way it works. It's never worked that way.
No, and John Carlos and Tommy Smith at the or maybe out there, yeah, right. They put their fists up in the air and caused holy hell around the world and got kicked out of the Olympics. And Rosa Parks wouldn't give up her seat, and it caused holy hell. And Colin Kaepernick took a knee, which had nothing to do with disrespecting the armed forces or the flag. And it's every time a black person protests, it's wrong, And so at what point does it spill over? All right, you got 30 seconds to sum it all up for me. I know that's not a lot, but
just think about this. You're in sports, but we're having a conversation that doesn't necessarily pertain to sports. So are you totally out of line for deciding that this is something that you want to talk about? It kills me how folks say, well, that person's in athletics or that person's in, why would we listen to them? Okay. Well, because they're a human being. Does that make sense? They have an opinion, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in line with exactly what you know them for, right? Muhammad Ali said this, I don't have to be who you want me to be. I can be who I want to be. And that is, if people just understood that and accepted that and embraced everybody for who they are versus just trying to put people in boxes and make them be who they want them to be and represent what they want them to represent, I think we'd all be a lot better off and things would go a lot further.
Collis Temple III gets the last word. Fantastic interview. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Lee.
This has been Sports 225.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching